Today's lesson is Beyond Pizza, exploring Italy's less famous food favorites. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to be talking about Italian food. So if I mention Italian food, in most people's minds, the first thing that's going to come to your mind is pizza or spaghetti or other kinds of pasta. But today we are beyond pizza. We're not just talking about pizza and pasta. We're talking about some of the less famous food favorites that they have in Italy. They know all about them, people in Italy, but the rest of us are pretty ignorant. And today we're going to learn about some of the regional dishes in Italy that everybody loves so much.
Exactly right. Yeah, talking about Italian food as if it's one thing is sort of like talking about Chinese food as if it's one thing. Foreigners might think that, but once you travel here to Taiwan, you realize there is a big difference between sort of Cantonese food and Shanghai food, Taiwanese food, Hokkaiese food, right? There's some similarities, of course, between all these regional styles of cooking Chinese food, but some big differences as well. Now, Taiwan has some great Italian restaurants, don't get me wrong, but yeah, they do kind of focus on some of the things local people like. These are businesses after all. They do have to satisfy customers' expectations and requests and stuff. So pizza, pasta, risotto, I think, is another thing that most Italian restaurants in Taiwan will have on the menu. And these are popular dishes for good reason. They're very tasty. But occasionally, just occasionally, you might want to step out of your comfort zone and try an Italian food that isn't something you're very familiar with. And the good news is that Italy, with its wide range of regional styles of cuisine, has many treasures to discover that are not pizza, spaghetti, or risotto. So let's look at some of them. We're going to find out all about this and about some of the different regions of Italy at the same time. So let's get into the article. Beyond Pizza, exploring Italy's less famous food favorites. Thanks to the global popularity of pizza, there might be no cuisine that's more widely adored than Italy's. But for true fans of Italian cooking, the country's culinary crown belongs not to pizza, but to regional specialties like those detailed below.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 cuisine， 意思是一国或地区的特色料理、烹调，尤其是精致或高级的菜肴。例如 When traveling, we should take some time to try the local cuisine. 旅行时，我们应该花一些时间尝试当地特色料理。或者 I recommend this restaurant to people who enjoy Italian cuisine. 我向喜欢意大利料理的人推荐这家餐厅。再来看到动词 adore， 表示热爱、喜爱或是崇拜。例如 Linda adores receiving flowers as a gift. Linda 喜欢收到花当礼物。或是 Jenny adores her grandmother. Jenny 很爱她的祖母。另外补充这个字的形容词 adorable, A-D-O-R-A-B-L-E, adorable, 意思是可爱的或是讨人喜欢的。举个例子 The puppy is so adorable that everyone wants to pet it. 那只小狗非常可爱，每个人都想摸它。或是 Sherry has an adorable collection of dolls that is worth quite a bit of money. Sherry 有一系列可爱的娃娃，价值不菲。继续看到形容词 culinary， 它的意思是烹饪的或是厨房的。例如 Lisa enrolled in culinary school to pursue her passion for cooking. Lisa 报名了烹饪学校，以追求自己对烹饪的热爱。也可以说 This cookbook was written by a culinary expert. 这本食谱是由一位烹饪专家所写的。再来介绍名词 specialty， 指的是招牌菜、特色食品，也可以是特产、专长的意思。我们可以说 We should try the barbecue at this restaurant because it's their specialty. 我们应该尝试这家餐厅的烧烤，因为这是他们的招牌菜。或者 The chef here can cook anything, but his specialty is seafood. 这位主厨擅长各式菜肴，但海鲜料理才是他的拿手绝活。
All right, the first paragraph is an introductory paragraph, and it begins by saying, thanks to the global popularity of pizza, there might be no cuisine that's more widely adored than Italy's. Okay, so we're talking about the popularity of pizza, and here the word popularity refers to the degree to which something is popular. Okay, if something's popular, it's well-liked, lots of people like it. And, of course, you can find it all over the place. And in this case, we're turning it into a noun. Popular is an adjective. Hey, you're a very popular person. Or I could say, because of your popularity, everybody wants you to be the president of the student council. So here we're talking about the popularity of pizza. And thanks to that, because of that, there might be no cuisine that's more widely adored than Italy's. Of course, cuisine just talks about food, but cuisine makes it more specific and it makes it sound more fancy. Like, let's go have Italian food tonight, but you want to say we're going to have Italian cuisine tonight. That means you're probably going to a fancy restaurant and you're going to pay a lot of money for the food.
That's probably true, yes. We do use this to talk about regional cooking styles, and yeah, it's a fancy word. It's actually the French word for kitchen. So there you go. You've learned a little bit of French too. So there's no cuisine or no international or national style of food. We kind of think of it that way. Or regional style of food, I suppose you could say. When you're saying the word cuisine, you're thinking about that kind of idea that's more widely loved. If something is adored, it's loved. It's cherished. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. You adore your friends and family. You adore your old grandmother who was always there having fun with you as a kid. You adore a certain place that has special meaning to you. Basically, you in love with it. You like it in a very strong way. So that's more widely adored than Italy's. I've heard it actually said you can't really call yourself a town or a city anywhere in the world unless you have an Irish or English style pub, a Chinese food restaurant, and an Italian food restaurant. Almost any town you go to, from the middle of the Amazon to the dusty plains of Africa to, of course, here in the big bustling cities of Asia, you will find a British style pub or an Irish style pub, Chinese food, and an Italian food restaurant. So there you go. But it says, but for true fans of Italian cooking, the country's culinary crown belongs not to pizza, but to regional specialties like those detailed below. All right. So yes, knowing about pizza and pasta, loving those, that's great, but that's kind of surface level Italian cuisine. That's the most popular, well-known stuff. If you really want to get into it, you have to look around a little bit more. So if you're a true fan of Italian cooking, if you really adore this cuisine, this style of cooking, the country's culinary crown belongs not to pizza, but to some other dishes that we'll tell you about. Culinary, basically relating to cooking in kind of a high level or professional way. If you go to a culinary school or a culinary institute, as they're sometimes called, that's a very high level, very technically skilled cooking school. It will probably cost a lot of money. It might be hard to get into, but once you graduate from culinary school, you'll basically be able to work at any kitchen in any type of restaurant anywhere in the world, especially kind of the high-end fancy places. If you want to have the peak of culinary achievement, you might look out for a Michelin-starred restaurant in your town, that kind of thing. So very high level of food preparation and cooking skill. So if you want to try some of these things, you're going to have to check out some regional specialties. A specialty is something that is very special and kind of, it's a feature of a certain place, or it is a certain defining feature of a person. If you might say, oh, in the kitchen, my specialty is making cakes. That's what I'm really, really good at. It's a defining feature. It's something that sets me apart from other things. And often when we talk about food specialties, these are things that are really connected, well-made, and have a deep history and tradition in a certain place. All right, so we might think of pineapple cakes as being a specialty in Taiwan. I'm sure they make them in other places. You can find them in bakeries in other parts of the world, but they kind of come from here, and certainly many of the best in the world are made here and connected to this part of the world that we live in.
Yep, indeed. And of course, you could talk about different parts of Taiwan having different specialties. For example, you could talk about the cow tongue cakes.
Cow tongue cakes?
Yep, that's what they're called. They are a specialty of Ilan, I believe.
Oh, Okay.
And, of course, there are different kinds of specialties all over Taiwan. But, again, if you're a true fan of Italian cooking, you know that pizza is not the most important type of Italian food. The most important type of Italian food is all these regional specialties, which we'll talk about now. So let's move on and talk about the first one. I'm not really an Italian expert, but I think this is pronounced tagliatelle, and it is served with truffles. Let's find out what this is all about.
Tagliatelle with truffles. This delicious dish consists of pasta ribbons tossed in butter and truffle sauce, and then topped with cheese and truffle slices. With its basic ingredients, it's the perfect representative of Umbria, where simple, straightforward flavors are key to the local food culture. In fact, the region's cooking is so famous for its plain approach that it's often described as cucina povera, peasant cooking. But that hardly makes it inferior, as Umbrian cuisine is truly greater than the sum of its parts.
第二部分看到名词 ingredient， 它的意思是烹调的材料、成分，也可以是要素的意思。例如 I only use the freshest ingredients in my cooking. 我在料理时只使用最新鲜的材料。又或者说 Flour is the most important ingredient in making this bread. 面粉是制作这种面包最重要的原料。
All right, so we are with our first regional specialty. This is a type of food from Italy. Of course, we're talking about Italian cuisine here. It's a type of food that is very well connected to a certain part of the world. Now, you might have had tagliatelle. It's basically a kind of long, flat pasta. So imagine you have a spaghetti or a normal round noodle and you kind of flatten it out. That's basically what tagliatelle looks like. And you can serve it with a lot of different sauces and toppings. But here, we're talking about tagliatelle with truffles, those very delicious, fragrant mushrooms that grow underground and are very expensive, can only be found by certain trained dogs or wild pigs, grow up in the mountainous regions of Italy and France and places like that. A lot of people use them to flavor a dish right at the very end, but of course it is a very fancy, rare ingredient, which explains its very, very high price. But if you shave a few little truffles over the top of your dish, it might make it taste extra special. So it says this delicious dish consists of pasta ribbons tossed in butter and truffle sauce and then topped with cheese and truffle slices. Wow, that sounds fantastic. It also sounds like something I would never try to make at home. I don't want to go out and buy a truffle and do this. I think I'll pay for it in a restaurant. It might be a little expensive, but it's probably a lot less trouble than trying to do it at home. And it sounds very good. So we have our noodles here. They're tossed in butter and a truffle sauce. So I guess you cook the truffles down in some oil or the butter, and then you top them with cheese and truffle slices, and I imagine that cheese would probably be Parmesan or Pecorino or one of those hard, salty Italian cheeses. Sounds great. It says with its basic ingredients, it's the perfect representative of Umbria, where simple, straightforward flavors are key to the local food culture. So there you go. Basic ingredients: noodles, butter, truffles, cheese. That's about it. That's pretty basic. That's pretty simple. And when we're talking about the things that go into a dish, we're talking about the ingredients. So if you've ever cooked anything from a cookbook or a recipe, before it tells you how to cook the dish, the instructions, at the top of the page, it will usually have all of the things you need to collect in order to make the dish: flour, butter, salt, sugar, pepper, spices, oil, certain amounts as well. Those are the ingredients that go into a dish. So a lot of people would know that pasta noodles in Italy, pasta in general, has a few simple ingredients. It's water, it's salt, it's flour. That's about it. So basic ingredients are simple ingredients, nothing too fancy. And it's a perfect representative of Umbria. Umbria, I believe, is just sort of northeast or north of Rome. It's right in the central part of Italy. It's not on the coast, but it is not too far from Rome. And it says in Umbria, they really appreciate appreciate simple, straightforward flavors. These are key to the local food culture. A basic ingredient and a straightforward flavor, kind of similar in the mind. Straightforward means nothing too fancy. It's not basic maybe, but it's not too fancy. We're just doing things in a very simple way, a very direct way, a very easy to understand way, a way that most people will be able to understand, appreciate, and enjoy.
You could describe a person as being straightforward as well. They're very honest, they're straightforward, they're direct to you, they don't beat around the bush, as we say. So here, of course, we've got these straightforward flavors, which means they're pretty much what you expect. There are no surprises in regard to these ingredients. So yes, indeed, this is representative of this region of Italy that has this kind of simple food, but it still is oh so tasty. And in fact, the region's cooking is so famous for its plain approach that it's often described as cucina povera. I hope I said that right again. I don't really speak Italian.
Cucina.
Cucina, okay, thank you very much there. The C, I guess, would have a ch sound. But in any case here, that just means peasant cooking. A peasant is a farmer, but generally speaking, the word peasant describes a really poor farmer, and this person is often looked down on. So if somebody calls you a peasant, it's probably not meant as a compliment, so be careful with the usage there. But that's what the phrase here means, cucina povera. It means peasant cooking or cooking of farmers or the simple people.
Simple, straightforward, basic ingredients, right? That kind of thing. That's what we would think about. But a lot of that delicious food, like beef bourguignon from France, is also peasant cooking. Of course, these days they'll use better cuts of meat for it, give it more flavor, maybe add in some fancy ingredients. But yeah, this is simple fare for simple folks, simple food for normal, hard-working people like the farm workers, like the peasants of the past. But, as the article says, that hardly makes it inferior. Just because it's cooking for the peasants, cucina povera, that hardly makes it inferior. That doesn't make it bad. That doesn't make it worse than anything else, anything better, anything fancy or more expensive. Not at all. As Umbrian cuisine is truly greater than the sum of its parts. Well, that's a very good way of expressing how simple food can take basic ingredients but put them together in a very, very delicious and satisfying way. Yes, I'm using things you can find in your local market or even grow in your backyard in the garden, but it's greater than the sum of its parts if you take those fresh tomatoes, if you take that lovely olive oil and put all of that together with some pasta and some other things. Ooh, you're going to get something that seems wonderful, that tastes wonderful, but it might be made up of very simple, basic ingredients. All the better to enjoy it. All right, let's turn our attention to our second regional specialty. This is one that blew my mind when I first discovered them, arancini. Arancini. Arancini are deep-fried balls of rice stuffed with peas, meat sauce, and cheese. A favorite street food of Sicily, arancini take their name, which means little oranges, from their small golden appearance. They may also provide a window into the island's long history of colonization, since it's believed that they're based on a similar Arab dish that arrived in Sicily over 1,000 years ago.
"第三部分看到名词 colonization 表示殖民或是殖民地的开拓，我们可以说 The history of colonization is a complex and often controversial subject. 殖民史是一个复杂且经常有争议的话题。最后一个例子 European countries engaged in widespread colonization during the 16th and 17th centuries. 在16和17世纪，欧洲国家进行了广泛的殖民。
Okay, arancini. Okay, that's another regional specialty of Italy. Arancini are deep-fried balls of rice stuffed with peas, meat sauce, and cheese.
And at that moment, my mind exploded because I just thought, what a great combination.
Does indeed sound like a great combination,
it?
And it does sound rather simple. It's deep-fried, which means it is fried in oil that is very hot, and you just simply submerge the ingredients in this oil, and you wait a few minutes for it to cook, just like you would deep fry French fries or whatever, and then you pull it out, and then you let the oil drain off of it. And in this particular case, the ingredients include peas, meat sauce, and cheese. And those three ingredients are stuffed inside rice. Okay, so you've got balls of rice, and then inside the rice you have peas, meat sauce, and cheese. Sounds kind of like a fondant to me, but in any case, that's a general description of this particular specialty.
Yeah, it's actually not too different from that, but imagine a fondant that's been deep fried in oil, like fried chicken or something like that. I'd never heard of this, and also the idea of deep frying rice was something that I'd never come across before. That would seem hard to do, but yeah, they're wonderful. Just maybe like a golf ball size, a little hot in the middle, of course, since it's been deep fried, but very good. Usually eaten as an appetizer, not as a main course. You might get a plate of them and everyone gets one or something like that. And here's another idea. It's a favorite street food of Sicily. It says arancini take their name, which means little oranges, from their small golden appearance. So yeah, kind of imagine a takoyaki like you might have in Osaka, those grilled squid balls. Not too different from that, and similar in the same way that you got to be careful biting into it. Maybe wait a little bit. They can be very hot on the inside. But they're from the ball that the Italian foot or boot is kicking. This is the famous island of Sicily, right down there in the southwestern part of Italy. That's where they come from. So arancini, it says, take their name, or they are named after. That's where they get the name from. Where does the name come from? It means little oranges. And that is, of course, from their small golden appearance. Once they come out of the oil after being deep fried, they're a little bit golden and crispy on the outside. They kind of look like little oranges. How cute.
Isn't that a cute name for this delicacy of this particular region of Italy? And it goes on here to say they may also provide a window into the island's long history of colonization, since it's believed that they're based on a similar Arab dish that arrived in Sicily over 1,000 years ago. So yeah, I guess we all pass around ideas about food all the time, so it's hard to say what food is native to a certain place and what isn't. But again, if we have a window into something, it just gives us a glimpse into something. We can have a little bit of a viewpoint. We can learn a little bit about this. And in this particular case, we're talking about colonization. Italy was a colony at one time. It was part of a larger empire. And so therefore, this particular dish is believed to have been influenced by something that the Arabs brought there over 1,000 years ago. Okay, that brings us to the end of the explanation for today. It's time to turn things over now to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始写到，由于披萨受到全球喜爱，可能没有比意大利料理更受人喜爱的料理了。文中是用片语介系词 thanks to 去表达由于怎么样怎么样。Thanks to 的后面可以接人或事物，那它的意思跟 because of 接近。可是呢 thanks to 常常用在正面的原因，可以表达出幸亏怎么样，多亏怎么样的语义。例如 Thanks to your help, I was able to solve the problem successfully. 多亏了你的帮忙，我才能顺利解决问题。好，另外 thanks to 有时候也会用反讽的语气来表达归咎的原因哦。如果说 Thanks to you, we now have to do it all over again.意思是因为你，我们现在又必须重来一遍了。好，那另外课文句子里面呢，有一个动词是 adore， 我们来拆解一下它的字首字根。adore 它的字首 ad 表示朝向，那么 ore 这部分有诉说、期盼的意思。当我们朝向某人诉说，向对方表达爱慕、崇拜，用这样的方式，也许可以联想到 adore 它有热爱、崇拜的意思。那我们接着在 adore 后面加上 able， 表示可怎么样、能怎么样的，就会变成形容词 adorable。当某人是会令人爱慕的、让人热爱的，那就表示他是可爱的、讨人喜欢的。好，那接着课文下一句提到说，对于真正的意大利菜爱好者来说，该国的烹饪皇冠并不属于披萨，而是属于以下详细叙述的地区特色菜。文中它是用 belongs not to but to 来表达说并不属于什么，而是属于什么。这边我们就是要介绍 not A but B 这个句型是表达不是 A 而是 B， 用来连接两个对等的结构。那么 A 和 B 的词性必须相同，像课文是用到 not to pizza but to regional specialties， 它连接了两个名词。那我们来造个例句， She left him not because he was poor, but because he was lazy and selfish. 她离开他不是因为他很穷，而是因为他懒惰又自私。那这个例句呢，就是用 not 跟 but 去连接两个子句。好，另外如果我们要用 not A but B 来当主词的话，动词的人称是要配合最靠近的主词做变化，也就是配合主词 B 做变化。例如 Not Cinderella, but her sisters are going to the party. 不是仙杜瑞拉，而是她的姐姐们要去参加派对。所以这时候句子里面的 be 动词是配合最靠近她的主词 her sisters， 所以我们是用 are 不是用 is。 好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Popularity. Milton's popularity with the team makes him a natural leader. Cuisine. Rice and noodles feature heavily in Japanese cuisine. Adore. Many fans adore the singer for her powerful voice. Specialty. Pottery created using traditional techniques is a specialty of the region. Ingredient. The main ingredient in this delicious and comforting soup is chicken. Straightforward. Mrs. Collier's instructions for the homework were straightforward and easy to follow. Peasant. The peasant worked hard in the fields every day to ensure a good harvest. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.